All right, I'm back to share a few more of my favorite poems. The first one I want to read is in honor of Nikki Giovanni, who passed away just within the last week or so. This is one of her poems called Woman. She wanted to be a blade of grass amid the fields, but he wouldn't agree to be a dandelion. She wanted to be a robin singing through the leaves, but he refused to be her tree. She spun herself into a web and, looking for a place to rest, turned to him. But he stood straight, declining to be her corner. She tried to be a book, but he wouldn't read. She turned herself into a bulb, but he wouldn't let her grow. She decided to become a woman, and though he still refused to be a man, she decided it was all right. If you have not explored the work of Nikki Giovanni, master pro at writing poetry and the world, she left quite a legacy. We'll say that in her words. And the last set that I read a poem by Lisel Mueller called Hope. This is another one of her poems that I really love called Alive Together. Speaking of marvels, I am alive together with you when I might have been alive with anyone under the sun. When I might have been Abelard's woman, or the whore of a Renaissance pope, or a peasant wife with not enough food and not enough love, with my children dead of the plague. I might have slept in an alcove next to the man with the golden nose who poked into the business of stars, or sewn a starry flag for a general with wooden teeth. I might have been the exemplary Pocahontas, or a woman without a name weeping in master's bed for my husband, exchanged for a mule, my daughter lost in a drunken bed. I might have been stretched on a totem pole to appease a vindictive god, or left a useless girl child to die on a cliff. I like to think that I might have been Mary Shelley in love with the wrong-headed angel, or Mary's friend. I might have been you. This poem is endless. The odds against us are endless. Our chances of being alive together statistically non-existent. Still, we have made it. Alive in a time when rationalists in square hats and hatless Jehovah's Witnesses agree it's almost over. Alive with our lively children who, but for endless ifs, might have missed out on being alive together with marvels and follies and longing and lies and wishes and error and humor and mercy and journeys and voices and faces and colors and summers and mornings and knowledge and tears and chance. I love that this poem is filled with historical references. If you don't know who the man with the metal nose is, the woman who's sewed the starry flag, just so many beautiful, beautiful allusions throughout history here. If you don't know who Mary Shelley's sister is, she was a part of quite a scandal there. Beautiful, beautiful poetry, beautiful allusions, like I said. In the Nikki Giovanni poems, such beautiful imagery, striking imagery, as described throughout that. And then here's another one of my favorite poems. It's called Sorting Laundry by Elisavietta Ritchie. Another one with lots of imagery and lots of allusions. Folding clothes, I think of folding you into my life. Our king-sized sheets like tablecloths for the banquets of giants. Pillowcases, despite so many washings, seems still holding our dreams. Towels patterned orange and green, flowered pink and lavender, gaudy, bought on sale, reserved, we said, for the beach, refusing even after years to bleach into respectability. So many shirts and skirts and pants, recycling week after week, head over heels, recapitulating themselves. All those wrinkles to be smoothed or else ignored. They're in style. Myriad uncoupled socks which went paired into the foam like those creatures in the art. And what's shrunk is tough to discard, even for goodwill. In pockets, surprises. Forgotten matches, lost screws clinking on enamel, paper clips, whatever they held between tiny jaws now dissolved or clogging the drain. Well-washed dollars, legal tender for all debts, public and private, intact, intact despite agitation, and gleaming in the maelstrom, one bright dime, broken necklace of gold you bought from Kuwait, the strangely tailored shirt left by a former lover. If you were to leave me, if I were to fold only my own clothes, the convexes and concaves of my blouses, panties, stockings, bras turned upon themselves, a mountain of unsorted wash could not fill the empty side of the bed. Ah, this poem is beautiful. Beautiful, romantic, passionate, longing, fearful. Um, the memories, how every article of clothing, I mean, maybe this is ridiculous, but when you're doing laundry, do you ever think about what the different clothes represent? Or doing the dishes, think about the different things that the different dishes represent, the different meals you've had on those dishes, where they came from, who sat with you. Um, I mean, here, just talking about the towels and the sheets and the clothes and um, styles that go in and out and clothes that you can't get rid of and something left from a previous relationship and the things that clog the drain and all the mundane things of life that we just kind of neglect and overlook and don't pay attention to, but they make up the beauty of our life and the story of our life. And then what I would say is probably the poem that has meant the most to me throughout my life. Um, Most likely you've heard this poem. If you're a friend of mine, I may have sent this poem to you at some point. So this poem is called If by Rudyard Kipling. The thing about this poem is throughout different stages of life, it means different things. When I was teaching seniors, I would read this poem on the first day of school and have my students write down a personal reflection of what they think the poem means. And then on the last day of school, their senior year, we would also read the poem and I would have them write down what it means. And then I would hand back the one from the first day and kind of consider how the poem's meaning might have changed as they've aged throughout the school year. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the world and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. I mean, it's hard to read this poem and not stop and comment on every line or couplet. Um, I mean, the beginning says, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can just stay calm in the chaos and not get lost in the chaos, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If everyone's saying that there's something, stop and pause and do some reflection, and maybe there is something that you can learn or grow. Maybe not. Don't let what they say destroy you, but stop and pause and reflect and see if there is some truth you can take out of it. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, God, that's hard. Or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating. How do you just sit back and take all the lies and the hate and the vitriol spewed at you and not throw it back? If you can do those things and yet not be cocky, not look too good, not talk too wise, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can have goals and ambitions, but also live your life in the moment, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, life isn't here and life isn't here. Life is in the middle. So triumph and disaster, they're just imposters. Living life in the middle, treating those two imposters just the same. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, the things you've said, taken and twisted and made a trap for fools, I think one of the most poignant things for me throughout life has been watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. If you can take what you've invested years in or your life's blood in, and you've built, I picture like a sandcastle, and it just gets destroyed. And what do? You bend down and you rebuild it. You keep going, you keep building. You don't get destroyed by it, you don't get crushed by it, you don't give up. You keep rebuilding it with worn out tools. There's times that you risk it all. And sometimes when you risk it all, you lose it all. And then you have to start right back over and never breathe a word about your loss. You just keep going. And if you can keep going when your heart and nerve and sinew beg you to quit, and yet something inside of you pushes you, and you keep going, and you tell them to hold on. If you can walk with crowds, if you can walk with kings, keep your virtue, not lose the common touch. And if you can fill every minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then yours is the world and everything in it. Living life for the fullest and living every moment. And I would be remiss not to read something by the great Emily Dickinson. If you're not familiar with Emily Dickinson, the majority of her poems she did not write to be published. She was just writing her thoughts and her feelings and her secluded life, looking out her window, dreaming of a world and a life that she could never have. Some of them forbidden hopes and dreams in a time period in a culture in which they were not allowed for her. And she actually left instructions for these notes in her chest to be destroyed. And when they were discovered, there's some controversy over whether or not we should even be reading her work, because instead of destroying them, they were published and the family made money off of them. So, in one sick way, the world has the treasure of Emily Dickinson's poetry, which changed the face of poetry. She took what was a formulaic, I hate to say formulaic and cold, stodgy, structured form of what poetry was, because those poems are beautiful. The sonnets are beautiful. The elegies are beautiful. The ballads are beautiful. They're great pieces of work, but she freed them. And the way Emily Dickinson used spacing and punctuation marks to communicate meaning is absolutely brilliant. And if there was no Emily Dickinson, who knows if we would have had an E. E. Cummings. What she did for the structure of poetry was very groundbreaking, even though for her it was just self-expression, which kind of makes it more beautiful. One of my favorite poems of hers, there's tons of them. And of course, she didn't title her poems because they weren't to be published. They were numbered. So usually when you come across one of her poems and there's a title, it's just the first line of the poem. So this is one of her poems. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd banish us, How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog, to tell your name the livelong day to an admiring bog. It's just, eh? I'm nobody. Are you nobody? There's two of us. It's great. Anyways, poetry can be fun. Poetry can be great. Poetry can be expressed in any human emotion you have. There's poetry about it. Anything that you find beautiful, there's poetry about it. There's poetry about dinosaurs. There's poetry about rodeos. There's poetry about bugs and insects, just as much as there's poetry about love and passion and intimacy. And there's poetry about death and sorrow and grieving. There's poetry about birth and new life. Um, there is very, very, very structured poetry that takes so much skill to craft, where every syllable goes, excuse me, where every accented and unaccented syllable goes. And there's poetry in the shape of things, and the shape communicates as much meaning as the words itself. And then there's poetry that is just condensed human emotion that is not necessarily structured, but is powerful in the words that it uses to convey. Um, anyways, I don't know if you're enjoying this. I'm really enjoying it. I guess I'm missing. I don't miss grading papers and I don't miss lesson planning, but I do kind of nerd out on the literature that I love. So I found a few more poems that I want to share. I'll be back soon, but um, love you guys and I hope you're having a great day.